Hey, what's up, everybody? Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow. It's the two-man wrecking crew on this Sunday edition of The Sweat. We thank you for joining us as you do every Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 10 Eastern on VSiN, DraftKings Network. Here to dish out some bets for the next 2 hours or so. Have a jammed-packed show for you, as we always do, but let's take a little preview of what we got going up on the show here on this Sunday. We're going to, of course, talk about the NBA Finals Game 2 and Boston. Charlotte and Amin are going to be in studio to discuss that. Julian Edlow, of course, will be giving his insight as well. Julian is going to take myself around the bettor's box, going to give you some MLB bets for this one.
I don't think that was the right way to say that.
No,
but yeah, I'm going to talk to you about some MLB bets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to refer myself in the third person.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
Steve's picks for the day, right, burp. And then the NFC Beast or Least. We're going to start talking a little NFL as well. I know it's still a little bit early in the offseason here, but
it's, once we're in the finals and you're alternating nights of those basketball and hockey games, you got to start firing up the football.
Yeah, I mean, we can't talk about baseball for 2 straight hours. I mean, even as a big baseball guy myself, like there's only so much that we can talk about here. But what we are going to talk about to start the show, as we always do, we're going to start working up a sweat. What's on our minds to start the show here on a beautiful Sunday morning. Julian, going a little WNBA here and a little bit of controversy maybe?
Yeah, so everyone's talking about the Caitlin Clark Team USA story. She is reportedly not on the roster. We got the roster right up here for you. Yep. And if you follow the WNBA at all, you can see it's stacked. There's not a player on that list that I would say, like, hey, Caitlin Clark is a better professional basketball player than this person right now. Here's the issue. Is there anybody that you could take off that you wouldn't necessarily hurt your team by replacing her with Caitlin Clark? And would it change your team's chances of winning a gold medal at all? My answer is no. Now, is that fair to Caitlin Clark, or is it fair to the better professional veteran basketball player that you're taking off that team?
Sure.
Probably not. But guess what? This can't all be fair right now because all we're talking about is how the women's basketball game has grown, going from the college level, and how Caitlin Clark is going to carry that momentum into the WNBA and get eyes on the game. It's been working. You see the games Caitlin Clark plays in. Right. They have double, triple the attendance, double, triple the eyeballs on TV.
Which teams just switched venues and then they ended up selling the bigger venue? That was just a couple days ago.
Oh, yeah, I don't even, but the point of the story is you can move out of your building into a bigger building and still sell it out because Caitlin Clark is coming to town.
Right.
So, if it's going to be the Olympics, how many more people are you going to get attending those Olympic Games? How many more people are you going to get over the summer when, I'll admit, like, when USA Basketball gets going, and it's just in that lull period, like I'll skip some games and just be like, let's hang out outside, like do something different.
Sure.
You're gonna need Caitlin Clark to get those eyeballs over the summer when basketball slows down to raise the game to the level that the WNBA is trying to raise the game. So I would have gone with Caitlin Clark on this roster for the pure sole purpose of eyeballs, and you got to continue that momentum. And you take the shots about whether it's fair or not fair. I guess my only question is, with the way we see Caitlin Clark taking all these hard hits right now, some of these women aren't talking about her in the post-game pressers. Would there be an issue with the team gelling together where they kind of are like, well, she doesn't deserve to be here? If that's the issue, I get it, but I think it would be very beneficial to that team, which should be a monster favorite to win the gold medal. The women's teams are way bigger favorites than the men's teams in these type of things to win. That would have been a good way to kind of carry some of that momentum, and they're not going that route.
Well, that's kind of where I was going here, too, because if you think about, Caitlin Clark's been in the league now, what, month and a half or so it's been?
Yeah, they go right from the end of March Madness into the start of their professional career.
And, for someone that doesn't follow the WNBA very closely, at least from what I gather, it's just been a lot of, not controversy, but it's been like, Caitlin Clark was being treated like this happened during the game. And now you got this, controversy, if we want to call it that, with the Olympics. It's like, it's been a weird start for her career in the WNBA. Despite the fact that she is like the biggest draw, and like for a sport that needs as much good publicity and getting just casual eyeballs on the sport, you would think that the natural way to do this is to bring her in. Like, for example, like Major League Baseball has had a hard time having a face of the franchise to be like a consistent one. Like, we thought it was going to be Fernando Tatis Jr., then obviously all the PED stuff comes up. We thought it was going to be Julio Rodriguez, and then he's kind of been slumping this year. Whereas the WNBA is like they have their star in Caitlin Clark, but it feels almost like they're not fully embracing that and taking advantage of it and getting her on this team and getting all those. The ratings would be huge with her on there.
Yeah, that's the reason that I would have gone that route. But at the same, like if you're arguing for a face of the team because of basketball, like Asia Wilson's the best player in the WNBA, and you look at the juice for MVP. She got kind of snubbed last year. It's June, and we're laying like minus 160 or whatever it is for Asia Wilson MVP. So plenty of talent on that team. It's still worth watching if you're a real basketball fan, for sure. I'll watch it.
Yeah.
But again, the big numbers were going to be had by Caitlin Clark, and I think that maybe puts a little speed bump in the growth that they're looking for. But again, like if you tell me like who do I want to play in that backcourt, like Kelsey Plum, Jewel Lloyd, those are better players that deserve to be there and be getting the minutes. But you had to give or take something, and they clearly picked their lane with that.
Okay, so one thing I want to get into here is talk about, and it's, we're talking about this in early June, a lot can change here, but a lot can change in the course of a couple weeks. And, for a long time here, talking about the Houston Astros, I mean, this team had gotten off to one of its worst starts in recent memory. Like, for a team that has consistently been in the American League Championship Series, it's been looking like they would be anywhere but there this season. But if you start to look at the landscape for Major League Baseball, it's absolutely atrocious at this point. Or would you be surprised, Julian, to know that the Houston Astros only have a better record than 3 other teams in the American League right now? That is the Oakland Athletics, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Chicago White Sox. And yet, despite that, they are only 3.5 games out of a wild card spot. And that is because 9 teams in the American League have a winning percentage under 500. So that has basically...
Everybody kind of stinks
Everybody
in baseball
kind
this year.
of
Even
sucks.
in the NL.
Right. Everybody sucks this year. I don't understand. Like, it's almost like there's a few teams that are good, and then there's the rest of the league at this point. In all of Major League Baseball, 11 teams in the entire league are under 500 at this point. It's amazing to think about. So the Houston Astros, who are 30-35, you can still get a plus 125 to make the playoffs. And I was someone who earlier in the year was like, I think they're just that bad. But when the rest of the league is that bad too, then maybe I'll just go with the talent here. Because there's some teams that I just don't think are ever going to climb out of that hole. Like the Tampa Bay Rays, 31-33. I think this is a lost year for the Tampa Bay Rays. They're not hitting at all. They don't have the pitching that they've had before in prior years. The Detroit Tigers, a lot of people are higher on that team. They're under 500. They're 31-33. Boston Red Sox are on the brink of losing these 4-game series against the Chicago White Sox. Lost 2 in a row to that team. A team who coming into that series had lost 13 games in a row. The Red Sox can't even get a win over that team. And then the Texas Rangers really are struggling too as well. 30-34 right now, 469 winning percentage. But again, only 3 games back of a wild card spot. Astros are dealing with a lot of injuries right now. They just lost 2 pitchers to Tommy John surgery. They lost Christian Javier. They lost Jose Urquidy. Kyle Tucker just went on the IL as well, but Kyle Tucker's going to be back soon. Luis Garcia should be back potentially next month. So I just think there is a potential for this team, especially in a division that's not good overall when you got Seattle, Oakland, Angels, Astros. I think that the Astros could end up sneaking into the playoffs here. And again, I was not thinking that they were going to make it there at all, but the whole league is just struggling, it feels like.
All right, so my takeaway, and I don't mind your bet, that's obviously a team that we've seen perform for a while. You're getting plus money on them to make the playoffs, which before the season was probably at least minus 2.
Oh, 240, minus 240,
So, I mean, buying low for sure. Here's my takeaway from everything that you just said. There's a few good teams and a whole lot of bad teams.
Yeah.
I think it might be a good time to bet on the good teams to match up in the World Series.
Yeah.
So, I'm just looking at the World Series straight forecast. Dodgers to beat Yankees, 11-1. Yankees to beat Dodgers, 15-1. Dodgers to beat Orioles, 17-1. Yankees to beat Phillies, 20-1. I like the Phillies a lot this year.
Yeah.
I would bet Yankees over Phillies 20-1. Phillies over Yankees 22-1.
Yeah.
You're getting those in now. We're saying there's like 4 or 5 teams that we actually feel are like World Series good, right?
Right.
Those are some pretty big numbers when in a like, and again, we'll probably be wrong. The Royals will go to the World Series, which we would be fine with, but like,
and that's fine. I hope so.
Weird teams always sneak in and perform, so like you're opening yourself up to that. But it feels like if there was ever a year to say baseball could be chalk, this feels like the type of year.
Yeah, but I mean, but to say, baseball could be chalk, if you were taking the chalk in the beginning of the year, Astros, Braves were the second biggest favorites to win the division. They're like 6 games back of the Phillies at this point.
Phillies over Yankees, 22-1.
Wow.
That's it.
That's your play? That's going to be the play?
That's what I like. I think Phillies beat the Yankees in the World Series.
That would mean the Dodgers don't make it?
Well, Dodgers puke all over. I was at Fenway last year. For when the Dodgers were in town, arguing with the Dodgers fans, saying you guys are going to puke all over yourselves again and not make it deep. What did they do?
Well, Julian's hoping that the Celtics don't puke all over themselves in Game 2. We're going to talk about that when we come back from the break on The Sweat here. DraftKings Network, VSiN. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Sweat. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow. It feels like Game 1 was like a year ago.
Space out that schedule.
They really did space out the schedule.
No coincidence. Thursday night, And Sunday night, you want the people on their couch watching.
Yep. No, without a doubt. And we're going to have a very entertaining game 2 here tonight, 8:05 Eastern. That one is going to start. Obviously, the Celtics were able to take away the victory in that one by convincing fashion, too, as well. When you looked at that score there, 107-89, you can see Luka Doncic, too, was just... He was good in that game, but obviously wasn't enough. Kyrie Irving was obviously everything that they hoped he wasn't in that game here. But just look at the stark difference here in playoff wins versus playoff losses here. Obviously, some big differences in his points, rebounds, and assists here. What is your general just like analysis on what you saw from game 1 there? Obviously, Porzingis was huge in that one there, and especially for somebody too who that you didn't know what you were going to get out of him, but just an absolute firecracker for him, which also helped the Celtics score 37 points in that first quarter.
Yeah, so just to start with the Luka graphic that we saw, obviously your best player, you're going to lose when he plays poorly, you're going to win when he plays well. That all makes sense. But what I think the Celtics did a really good job of is making Doncic try and beat the Celtics by himself.
Yep.
He had the 1 assist. He had 7 potential assist opportunities, but the shots didn't fall, 1 of 7. But again, even if his teammates went 7 for 7 on those shots, he goes under his assist prop, which is, 8.5. Now I think it's down to 7.5 for this game. The Celtics did a good job of making Luka take tough shots to try and beat them, and he did take a lot of shots, a lot of volume. Other people weren't hitting, so I like what they did there, and I like what they did with Porzingis. Bringing him off the bench in that game. I would continue to bring him off the bench. Could they have started him? Probably. He played really well. It looks like they could have. I think they're just playing matchups here. Yeah. I think they want Horford up against Gafford, who started, and then Gafford was actually taken out of the rotation by Dallas, and Maxi Kleber was playing because they needed more spacing, more shooting. Didn't work out for them, but in theory, they made an in-game adjustment there for Jason Kidd. But bringing Porzingis off the bench, they want to match Porzingis up with Derek Lively. The rim protection, the rebounding that Lively had against the Wolves was huge. You do that against Porzingis, what do? You pull him away from the rim and negate that. So I really liked the game plan overall in Game 1, and I really liked how they used Porzingis. Now I would expect Dallas to make adjustments, and the Celtics are going to have to counter, but I like the way they used him.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to the next question here. What adjustments do Dallas have to make to not go down 2-0 in this series?
They have to adjust the whole way that they played in Game 1. I'm trying to think of something they did on offense or defense that doesn't need to change. They need to change it all. They need to get guys more involved. What the Celtics did is they take away the Mavericks had 60-something alley-oop dunks in the playoffs. The next closest team was in single digits. So the Luka and Kyrie lobs to Lively and Gafford were a huge part of the offense for just literally 100% makes, 100% 2 points. Celtics took all that away in Game 1. So Dallas needs to figure out. Another thing they took away was all those corner threes that Dallas makes. Mm-hmm. Celtics have one of the best corner 3 defenses in the NBA, and it helped that Dallas just missed a lot of open ones. So they need to find ways to get to the rim and get themselves those open threes that they're going to make that they were unable to find in Game 1. I think that's the most important part. If they can keep up offensively, because the Celtics were scoring, yes, but Dallas was way behind, not playing any kind of offense in the first half until they found it a little bit in the third quarter. Capture what they had in that third quarter with a couple of other adjustments, and I think we should get a much closer game at least.
So this is a 7-point spread, obviously in favor of the Celtics here, who are the home team for this one here. Do you have any thoughts on the spread? So Game 1, I believe, was 6.5.
Yep.
Is what it closed at. This opened at 7.5, obviously down to 7 here. Any thoughts on the spread here, or do you think that Dallas is going to keep this a little bit closer so we're not going to get this huge blowout like we did in Game 1?
Yeah, right now we got 58% of the bets for 59% of the handle on Dallas with the points, and I would lean that way. I think it should be a closer game. Again, I think Dallas's adjustments, the Celtics, the advantage the Mavericks have in this game is that the Celtics have no idea what Dallas is going to look like.
Yep.
And Dallas can probably assume the Celtics are going to play a pretty similar style. So the Celtics are going to have to then, readjust to whatever Dallas's adjustments are in this game. I think it leads to a much closer, better game. I think this has a chance to be maybe the best game of the series. Comes down to the wire, and we'll see who wins it. If Luka and Kyrie can be more clutch than Tatum and Brown, then I think Dallas has a good chance to pull it out. Bettors are betting it that way. Bettors think the Mavericks steal this game. The bets are 50-50 right now on DK. 72% of the handle is on that Mavericks plus 225. So bettors are going after the upset here. Kind of makes me like the Celtics. I think the Celtics are ready to break through. I think they might find a way to win some clutch games in this series like they did in Indy. But we'll find out. Luka and Kyrie are much better closers than anything the Celtics have seen so far, obviously.
Talk to me about this Porzingis first quarter points bet that you have here. That was easily cashed in game one there. Looks like bettors recognize that because the 3.5 is the over is at minus 142.
Opened
for this one.
Too.
Yeah, so this has kind of seen a lot of movement there, up 30 cents since opening here. Do you still like this one at 3.5 at minus 142?
Yeah. So you want to talk about a roller coaster of a bet before it even gets going? Bet Porzingis over 3.5 points. Find out he's coming off the bench, and then go, well, it didn't matter. It actually probably helped because then Porzingis. Again, Horford played 5 minutes, Porzingis played 7 minutes in the quarter. If he started, they would have just flipped that, and it would have been the same minutes, except you get Porzingis matched up against Lively like they wanted, and they kept getting all those switches. You saw all his first quarter points were really out of the high post, get that switch, shoot over the top of a smaller guy. I think we're going to see more of the same there. So again, we're getting I'm surprised it's 3.5 again after we saw Porzingis at 11 in the quarter, 20 in the game, because it's priced for him to be playing hurt. If we go to the 62 games now that Porzingis has played this season, he's gone over 3.5 first quarter points 47 times. That's like a 77% cash rate at this number because normally it's 5.5, 6.5. So I'll go right back to it. I like the matchup. I think Porzingis will be shooting over the top again. And again, I'm talking about the matchup. When he played Dallas earlier in the year, he had 13 in the first quarter. So it's now 11 and 13 in this matchup twice. If he comes off the bench, I will go right back to it, and I think that if I'm the Celtics, I'm bringing him off the bench again, only due to the matchups. Nothing to do with how hurt or not hurt he is, but I want to get the same matchups that I got in game one, and again, maybe he doesn't get there, but the volume should be there.
I might be putting words in your mouth, but have you also been on the team total first half for the Celtics pretty frequently over these playoffs?
Pretty frequently over the last 2 years.
Okay. Good friend I am.
It's done really well. They average 62.4 points per game in the first half this season. Jumps, fractionally in home games, but they have been better cashing it at home. Again, Dallas just below league average when it comes to first half defense. I think they rank 18th in terms of points per game allowed. But 65 in Dallas in the game in January, 66 in the first half of that home game in March. And what did they have at halftime of game one? That's probably something that I should have written down here, but they went well over 60. I think it was like 64.
37 and 26.
Let's do some math here.
That's 63.
63. So low 60s. They've been in the low to mid 60s all 3 times they've played this year. Again, if there's a bounce back spot for the Mavericks where they change things, it's here. I have much more confidence that the Mavericks are going to pick it up on the offensive end, and we see Luka and Kyrie come out clicking than it is going to be the type of game where Dallas comes out and shuts down the Celtics on the defensive end. So again, if you're going to, rather than lay first half points, I think Dallas is going to be in this, but it's going to be because of their offense. I think the Celtics will still get their scoring done just fine.
All right, so we got the men's French Open tennis is going to be kicking off in just about 40 minutes or so. Zach Cohen joined us to give us some of his picks ahead of today's start, just about a half hour.
The Sweat, this is Zachary Cohen with vsin.com with a pick for the men's final at the French Open. I like Carlos Alcaraz minus 1.5 sets at about minus 125 odds against Alexander Zverev. This is a rematch of a match that we saw at the Australian Open. Zverev won that match, taking advantage of the quicker conditions in Melbourne. These are much slower conditions. They are very similar to the ones we saw at Indian Wells where Alcaraz beat down on the German. I think we're going to see him do it again. He's going to attack Zverev's weak forehand relentlessly here, putting a lot of pressure on him on a side of the court that he is not comfortable with. Zverev is also one of the best servers in the world, but you know what? Alcaraz is one of the best returners in the world, so he's going to take away one of the biggest strengths that Zverev has. And this is just a tournament that we've been expecting Alcaraz to win for quite some time now. He was supposed to take the torch from Rafael Nadal. Well, here's the opportunity. I think he has a winnable match here to pick up his first Grand Slam at Roland Garros. I think he's going to do it in 4 sets or less in Paris.
All right, there we go. We got some tennis picks squeezed into the show. We got the NBA in earlier in the segment. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to dive into some baseball. I know we already talked Astros at the top of the show. Steve's got a laundry list of Sunday MLB plays that he likes. We will be back on the Sweat on the other side to break them down. Welcome back to The Sweat here on Sunday morning, VSiN DraftKings Network. He's Steve, I'm Julian. We're going to talk about some baseball. Loaded Sunday card as usual, and I'm looking at this first game that you have, Steve, and I'm like, this is a trap. But I'm probably going to join you. The Marlins stink.
They are.
Rogers has been awful. The Guardians are having a fantastic season. This is like a pick-em priced game.
Yeah.
Now, Carlos Carrasco's on the mound. He's 2-5 with a 5.66 ERA.
Yep.
Not the best option that you want to back.
Correct.
But I know why you're betting who you're betting in this game. Convince me, because it seems weird this game's a pick-em.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like, it's actually very painful for me to want to give a win for the Guardians, because the Guardians is what's blocking us from having the Royals in the division league. Because quite frankly, if the Guardians was playing like the rest of the league, like the 500 teams that we have, the Royals would be cruising at the top of the AL Central. So
nice.
Giving a win to the Guardians is not what I want to do. But that being said, you did mention we have two very mediocre pitchers going against each other. We have Carlos Carrasco, we have Trevor Rogers. Trevor Rogers, though, specifically has been having a really rough season. This is somebody in the years past that I've liked a lot. Like, I thought he was going to be a very good pitcher in Major League Baseball, but he's been anything but that over the past year and a half now. You look at his stats for the entire year. He's allowed at least 4 runs in 5 of the 12 starts that he's made, 4 of them coming at home, which is where this game is taking place here this afternoon. You look at his numbers in Miami, 5.88 ERA, 370 WOBA against opposing hitters here. And if you look at the pitches that he throws, opposing hitters are hitting over 300 against 3 of the 4 pitchers that he throws. 4-seam fastball, changeup, and the sinker. Hitters are just handling all of those pitches at this point. And for somebody who throws a sinker, which you would hope generates ground balls, he's been giving up a lot of fly balls, over a 30% fly ball rate on the year. Cleveland's been one of the better clubs against lefties overall, so I think that you could also take the over in this game. I think the over-under is set at 9 in this one. I think it's going to be a lot of offense in this one, but in the back end of this game, the Guardians definitely have the advantage in the bullpen over the Miami Marlins at this point, so I think you can play this in 2 ways. I think the over is a safe play. I'm not going to make that an official play, but I would lean in that realm. But I think the Guardians getting them at a very fair price at minus 112 against the Miami club that really is just... They're about to go on a fire sale. Let's put it that way. So give me the Guardians on the money line.
All right, from a game you do see offense in to a game you do not see offense in. Mariners are at the Royals. Royals a short favorite. Hopefully for our sake, they get that win for our division bet. But Kirby against Ragans, pretty good pitching matchup here.
Really good pitching matchup here, and this one has actually fallen a little bit here to 7.5. I did get this at 8. I still like the under 7.5 as well. You're getting that close to even money at this point at minus 105. But just the pitching matchup is just really the vast difference from the game we just talked about here. Seattle has also been an under machine this year. They're hitting the under in over 60% of the games that they've played. 38-25 and 3 record to the under on the game total so far this season. And Seattle has just been putrid against lefties. And this is a team that over the offseason, they really wanted to do their best to get rid of some of the guys and cut down on the strikeouts. Because of course, Seattle had one of the highest strikeout rates overall in the league. So they get rid of some guys like Eugenio Suarez, who's now with the Diamondbacks. And, funny thing, he keeps striking out over with the Diamondbacks. And yet, after doing that, Seattle still has one of the highest strikeout rates in the league against lefties, and just a 304 WOBA, which is near the bottom half of the league. You got Cole Reagans, who has been absolutely fantastic, has allowed a total of 3 runs over his last 4 starts. That's a span of over 24 innings. He's just been absolutely dominant. You got George Kirby on the other side. That's somebody that's not going to give away free passes. This dude has some of the best command in all of baseball. He is averaging under a walk per 9 inning at this point. So if the Royals are going to be getting on base, because they are a very patient team, they have to do it with contact. And doing that against Kirby has been problematic. And a lot of the starts that he's made, basically the story of Kirby is he's had a couple of clunkers and then the rest have been phenomenal. 4 starts already this year, hasn't allowed a run. So give me under 7.5, which it is now the number. If you can get 8, even better. But I think this game's going to be going under here this afternoon.
All right, Imanaga for the Cubs, 5-1, 1.88 ERA. He's been fantastic, but he's come back to earth a little bit more recently.
He really has,
right?
yeah.
So he's in Cincy, going up against Frankie Montas and the Reds. You like a first 5 play here going with the dog?
Yeah, I like the Reds on the first 5 run line here. I think this is a spot where we're just going to continue to see Imanaga kind of regress here. Now, if you look at the last 2 starts that he's made, 12 total runs allowed over the last 2 starts from the White Sox and the Brewers. Now, granted, in that last start, 4 of those runs were unearned, so obviously can't blame him for that, but it's just been a big difference from what we saw him when he first came into the league in late March, April, and then the first half of May. We've seen kind of a little bit of a different picture here because now teams have some intel on him. They can watch some video back, and now he's not being that, really strong pitcher that we saw in the beginning half of the season here. Reds are also a very good hitting club against lefties. I don't think they get their due when it comes to going up against left-handed pitching here. They have one of the highest walk rates in the league. They have one of the lowest strikeout rates in the league, and they have a 327 WOBA against lefties. So, we have this kind of perception that Imanaga is almost untouchable at this point, but if you watch back those last 2 starts, he's in anything but that. He gives up a lot of contact, too. He gives up a lot of hits. I think there's 4 or 5 starts now where he's allowed at least 6 hits in the start. So it's not like the guys aren't getting on base. Imanaga's just been doing so well at clearing those and getting out of those jams, but at some point, especially in baseball, that stuff's going to catch up to you at some point here. So I like the Reds here as dogs on the run line through the first 5 innings. You win this bet if the game is tied or the Reds have the lead. So 2 ways for you to win this bet. So give me the Reds on the first 5 run line.
All right, I like this Grayson Rodriguez kid, pitcher for the Orioles. He's 6-2 with a 3.28 ERA. He's pitching in Tampa today. He was out for about 3 weeks.
Yep.
Came back on May 18th. He has 4 starts. Since then, he has pitched 6 or more innings in 3 of those 4 starts. You think he's going to go deep into this one in Tampa?
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. And you look at the outs recorded prop here at 17.5 outs. So if we get him through 6 innings, you win the bet here on the over, which is what I'm taking here. Like you mentioned, he's gone at least 6 innings, 6 of the 10 starts that he's made. I mean, it's really coming down to me for just how poor this Rays offense has been. This is a team that for the past 4 or 5 years, it was just a juggernaut on the field for pitching and on offense. It's been anything but that so far this season. You look at what they're doing against the fastball, which is basically the main pitch that Grayson Rodriguez throws. He's throwing that pitch 51% of the time. The Rays just have a combined 283 WOBA against that pitch. That's one of the lowest in the league. And this is a pitch that across the league, fastballs are getting crushed. This is a big reason why the Red Sox have always kind of abandoned that pitch because the league just hits it so well. What the league can hit is curveballs and sliders. Numbers on that are way down, but fastballs, even with the numbers going up and how fast these guys throw, hitters are still hitting that very well. The Rays have been one of the exception here. The other pitch that Grayson Rodriguez throws is the slider. 268 WOBA for tonight's projected lineup against the slider here. So there's just a lot of ways that the Rays are struggling at this point. This offense just can't get it going. They've had a couple of injuries, but this feels like a good spot to back Rodriguez here. I also don't mind the Orioles to win this game outright as well. I think this is a spot that you can do it as well. Only minus 135. Zach Littell's been good. His strikeout numbers are way up, but Grayson Rodriguez has just been that good here. It's been pretty rare to get the Orioles at this short of a number at minus 135. I think you can back the Orioles there as well.
Yeah, I was going to say everything you laid out sounds like a good Orioles spot
as
well. All right, to Sunday Night Baseball, which this is a really good Sunday Night Baseball game.
It is.
If I didn't have to paint my entire body green and get ready for an NBA Finals game, I would probably watch it, but they're going up against the NBA Finals. So Dodgers-Yankees is going to get worse numbers than it should probably here. But Luis Gil, a guy I heard rumblings, he should take this guy Rookie of the Year, you should take him AL Cy Young. I have neither of those. I wish I did. You're going under on his strikeouts, though. I'm sure it has something to do with against the Dodgers, but he's only gotten lit up once, and it was on the road against Milwaukee. His other bad start was at Toronto, it looks like, at home. 6 starts, 5-0 with a 1.05 ERA, 50 strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a case of I don't think he's going to do well, but I just don't think the strikeouts are going to be there. When you look at this number at 6.5, it's a fairly high number. He's gone under this number in 7 of the 12 starts that he's made. So this is not a consistent number that he's been hitting. But this is one of the toughest matchups that he's going to deal with to date here. The Dodgers are not an easy club to strike out. They have just about league average when it comes to strikeouts against righties, but the problem is here, and this is where I think he's going to run into trouble, is that Gil really kind of struggles with his command. If you look at his walks per 9 inning, he's walking over 4 batters per 9 innings. The Dodgers have the highest walk rate in the league against righties here, so if they're going to be patient at the plate, this could cause him to be throwing a lot of pitches early in this game. Maybe he doesn't go as deep as he usually does, but this also says to me that if they're going to be patient, I think this is an opportunity to go under figure on his strikeout total here. I mean, this is someone who's walked at least 3 batters in half of the starts that he's made on the year. 6 of the 12 starts that he's made on the year, he's walked at least 3 batters. He's walked 4. He's walked up to 7 batters in some of these games. So this really comes down to the walks for me. Really going to get up his pitch count here. So I'm going to take the under on the strikeout prop at almost even money at -105.
Yankees lost 11-3 in that last one. They lost the first game of the series too, right? Dodgers in extras.
Yes, that was the one.
All right,
Yeah.
So this is 2-0 Dodgers. Now you got Glass now on the bump. I'm going the other way. Yankees tonight. Even money. Not that I'll be watching.
You're not going to watch
the basketball game. All right, when we get back on the other side of the break, we got some F1, we got some NASCAR. We're going to break it all down with Pierce Dietrich.
Welcome back to The Sweat. We do a little bit of everything on this show. We did some NBA, we did some MLB, we talked some WNBA, we talked some French Open. What do we have left? Oh, the car thing. We got to do some racing. So we bring in the freshly cut Pierce Dietrich to the show. Let's get a good look at this. Look at this. Last time we saw you, you're looking all shaggy. Now you're looking like a gentleman. Where are you from?
I'm from parts unknown.
Okay. Okay, you reside with the Ultimate Warrior. Okay, let's start getting into some racing here. Let's start with F1. For the second time in the last 3 races here, Pierce, Max Verstappen did not win the previous race. Leclerc got the win in Monaco. So what can we expect here from someone who's usually the big favorite in these races?
We shouldn't really overreact to Monaco. Monaco is its own little different race where if you win the pole, you're basically going to win the race. But the Red Bull team hasn't looked as dominant recently. So we could see them maybe not win by 20 seconds, but we have seen Verstappen after a loss really be fired up the next week. And then if you look at qualifying, he technically won the pole, but because of the way the rules are set, he's actually going to start second, so maybe that's going to make him even more fired up. For the most part, you just don't bet against Verstappen and Red Bull. Sure, they're not looking as dominant, but they'll get the job done.
And let's talk about this here, too. Leclerc has been good this season, along with his Ferrari teammate, Carlos Sainz. Any chance we see a double podium finish for them here? A rough qualifying has them starting 11th and 12th and at 65-1 odds to double here. Can they move their way up? And also, can you also just explain to anyone who doesn't know what a double podium finish is?
Well, first of all, a double podium would be that both of the Ferrari cars end up finishing 1, 2, or 3, so they end up on the podium. And we saw the odds significantly change after qualifying. So when you see 65-1, it's kind of appealing for Ferrari, but they have struggled this weekend. They were expecting to do a lot better coming out of Monaco, which was a track where they were really good, that has very slow corners, and they thought that they would be able to do that at Canada, which has long straight stretches, high speed, but also slow corners. And that just really hasn't materialized. They're much better in the mixed weather, and then qualifying just didn't work out for them. But hey, there is a chance of rain, and so typically this would be a really out there bet. But if rain rolls in, there is the possibility that you could take a risk on them getting there at 65-1. But it's looking like a big long shot. Mercedes has improved this week. McLaren's always good. Red Bull's good. So boy, that's a tough bet to make. But maybe you're just playing the rain.
I'm a big weather guy, always trying to keep up on the weather happenings in sports. But just kind of go through that a little bit with me here. Does that really change your perspective on anything? Or is that an advantage for a particular team? Is that a disadvantage for some? Just kind of go through your thought process with that.
Well, there are some drivers like Lance Stroll who typically are better in wet weather conditions. But even guys like Max Verstappen, they've done it all. They've raced their entire lives. They know exactly what they're going to do. But it can mess up the strategy, and it can add safety cars at different times where you can hit pit road at the right time and leapfrog 4 or 5 positions, whereas you may not have the speed or the car to do that. And so if the weather comes in, they have to switch tires. We get differing strategies, and it really opens up the opportunity for drivers that may not have looked very appealing to move forward.
All right, so let's get into some of the bets you like for this event. What are you targeting for this event here today?
Well, weather aside, if things are particularly normal, I think the Mercedes bet, maybe trying to get a double podium or even getting Lewis Hamilton on a podium, is quite appealing. We saw Russell take the pole, and it's clear that the Mercedes upgrades have worked. He also basically looked at Lewis Hamilton's data from practice session 3, and that's how he was able to qualify as fast as he was. And Hamilton was the fastest on the charts in practice 3. So weather aside, if you're not playing that angle and chasing that, then I think Mercedes having a big week in Canada is something to look at.
All right, let's move over to NASCAR. We got the Toyota Save Mart 350 going here today as well in Sonoma on a road course. Give us some strategy for this track and this race overall. What are we kind of thinking about for this one?
When we look at a road course, there's fewer laps, so we don't see as many fantasy points. And really, just getting your guys to finish up front's a big deal. We still need the drivers that are going to lead the most laps and run the most fast laps. We'll probably see at least 2 drivers cycle to the front at some point, and then also finish up front. So if you're building your DFS lineups, you're going to want 2 of the guys that are going to be up front, and typically those are going to be the drivers who start up front and have a pedigree of road course racing. And then for the rest of your lineup, the way that the competition shapes up anymore with parity of the cars and the experience of the drivers on road courses, really anyone in the top 25 can honestly earn a top 10 if they play the stages correctly and they just make fewer mistakes. So at that point, you really are just trying to chase place differential, drivers starting back towards the 20s, and hope that they get the stage cycling right and they make fewer mistakes. So you want to get lap leaders and then chase some place differential.
All right, so let's talk about those DFS lineups that you can build for this event here today, starting at, I think it's 340, it's 350 this afternoon here. You got 3 guys that are in that top 10K range, including Byron and Larson. Are you targeting any of those guys there, or are you maybe kind of staying out of the 10K range, maybe looking at the 9 to 8K range?
You're definitely going to want to spend up for lap leaders, and Byron and Larson and Hendrick Motorsports in general showed up with some pretty fast cars, and they could lead laps. So Byron and Larson are there. Up towards that same price range, Tyler Reddick is a driver that has had really good road course experience, really good success, showed up with a fast car, looked really good in practice, is qualifying on the front row. I could really see Reddick scoring the most fantasy points in this race. You look at Truex, who we all expected to run really well after a strong test session at Sonoma a couple months ago, but ultimately the JGR Toyotas just did not show up with a lot of speed. And so they are qualifying closer to the back, but at their price, they may not be the best point per dollar play. They fit the mold of chasing place differential, but they may be a little bit more of an expensive option. And we're really expecting them to be dominant, and that just does not seem to be the case.
So it's easy to spend up your money because you can take, the better racers here. But when it comes to value, like, what is your strategy for getting a value play here? Are you kind of taking guys that are in the back here to hopefully gain some positions, or like, what is your strategy for getting some value plays? And then give us one.
Yeah, so Kyle Busch is going to jump off the board. The RCR cars seem to lack speed. They had a 75% power issue, he and Will Brown, in qualifying, and so they didn't qualify very well. But Kyle Busch and the RCR cars have been really strong at the road courses over the last couple seasons. They're starting in the 20 range, and they definitely have the pedigree, the track history, the experience to get into the top 10. So Kyle Busch, the Australian Will Brown, making his debut. Ryan Preece is also another interesting figure starting towards the back. He's a guy that's not really going to go out there and try to be a hero. He's going to try to limit his mistakes and just move forward through the field. And that's kind of what you want to see with some of these value picks. You want him to be able to score place differential, but you also don't want him to do anything stupid, which is very easy to do on a road course where they don't have the most amount of experience. And he's demonstrated in previous races last season that he can go out there and just slowly, methodically come out with a good day. I'd also throw Josh Berry in that mix as well.
All right, give us a prop bet that you like for this one. There's obviously a bunch of categories you can get on DraftKings Sportsbook. We got driver props, we got team props, we got race props. You can go like, the winning manufacturer. Just give us something here that we can bet on and kind of sweat along as this race progresses.
How about a head-to-head AJ Allmendinger over Michael McDowell? Both of them are the premier road course racers in the series. They look pretty good so far this weekend. AJ just missed out on making it into the qualifying round 2. And had he done that, he may be starting on the front row. I think there is really some interesting speed in this car. He's probably not on the top of anyone's list. And I don't expect him necessarily to lead the most laps or to control the race. But I think there is some appeal here in AJ definitely beating Michael McDowell, who can often run into more mistakes and be a little too aggressive at times. And Allmendinger ultimately has the better track history and experience when we look at the stats.
All right, so now we need a winner for you. Who is going to win this race? We got Kyle Larson is the odds-on favorite here at plus 450. Tyler Reddick, 650. Chase Elliott, 7-1. Who are you liking? Who do you think is going to win this race here?
Yeah, I like all those guys as safe bets. Hendrick Cars and Tyler Reddick are the clear favorites to win this race. But for me, as I mentioned with AJ Allmendinger, I think there is some special speed in this car. and we may get some cautions at the end, get a little bit of mixing up of the running order, and he aggressively pulls out the win and gets you a little bit better of a payout. It's a little risky, and I know the data's not completely there, but I just got this feeling it's going to be an AJ day.
All right, Pierce, we appreciate it as always. Looking more handsome than usual. Hopefully, when you come back, you maintain that haircut because I think this works for you. I like how we look.
Oh, I really appreciate you saying something nice to me for once.
Yeah, don't get used to it. But one thing you can get used to is plenty of NFL talk coming up here in the next couple months. Julie and I are going to preview the NFC East when we come back here on The Sweat. Welcome back to The Sweat as we begin hour number 2. If you're just joining us, Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow. If you missed anything from the first hour, don't you fret. Got replay galore over on YouTube here. This is what we covered in hour number 1. Talked a little game 2 of the NBA Finals. Of course, I'm sure you didn't forget, but tonight at 8 p.m., game 2 will kick off. Julian Edlow gave a lot of insight into that. In the know around the show, I gave my best bets for the MLB slate. Hopefully it goes better than yesterday. Some of the people who work on the show tell me how bad yesterday was, but they don't do anything else but complain. And then around the track analysis on the Canadian Grand Prix and Sonoma, which is going on today as well. You can always go youtube.com/DraftKings. Click on the show and you can see everything from the show hour 1 and what we're going to be talking about here in hour number 2. It's early June, but we can talk some NFL. We can start looking at the teams here. NHL's winding down, NBA's winding down. You know, we need some other things to talk about. What better thing to talk about than some NFL and looking ahead here? We were discussing a little bit about what we want to talk about because we're going to kind of do like a division by division breakdown over the next couple months. We're going to start here with the NFC East. And really, this comes down to 2 teams. It's the Cowboys or the Eagles. This isn't expected to be a highly competitive division except for those 2 teams there. So it really comes down to how we feel about the Cowboys, how we feel about the Eagles. Let's just start off with the Eagles here because they are the odds-on favorite to win the division. 10.5 win total for this one. Plus 105 for the over, minus 125 for the under here. But they're plus 115 to win the division. Can they do it again this year? Because here's a couple things that we want to talk about. Their offensive line did have a big loss with the retirement of Jason Kelce, but they're still getting back their other 4 starters, so that's great. But they made it a priority to fix that secondary because that was probably one of the biggest knocks that you had against this team last year is that they were so bad in the secondary. They used their top 2 picks. They got Mitchell. They got DeJean. I mean, Mitchell regarded as the top corner in the draft, so they really, improved there. The offense got a big boost there with Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Gainwell to back them up. It feels like this team is complete. Yet, they're not expected, at least how the odds are set right now, to win 11 games. And you may need to win 11 games if you think the Cowboys are going to be competitive.
So I don't have a bet on the division one way or another.
There's no value in it right now,
Well, okay, so the Cowboys 12-5 last year. Eagles 11-6. I think that, an 11-6 Cowboys team could win it this year. I have the Eagles under 10.5 wins. I am betting them under. I just think you look at that team that won 11 last year and limped down the stretch. They racked up a lot of wins early, including that Monday Night Football game at Arrowhead that they had so many chances to lose, and they would have gone under this number even last year. But you look at how they limped down the stretch, losing a lot of those games, and it all comes to a head that Monday night playoff game in Tampa where they just get smoked. I get it. I like what they did in the draft. I like that they addressed the position of need and said, we're not just going to start with a corner. We're going corner. Right. Because we are bad here. We are thin. So I like that long term. I don't think they're just going to step in 2 rookie corners and change the team. So I think it's a pretty similar team to last year. I think they're going to be closer to the team we saw in the back half than the first half. So I think that means they're going to be a 10-win team or less. And I like them to go under that win total. And it starts with a really hard game. I have a few Eagles fades. Starts with a hard game. Here's a team that picked up momentum as the postseason went on and had a good postseason, the Green Bay Packers. Plus 102 on the money line. Friday night, neutral field. Kind of a weird start to the season, but I like Green Bay to come out and get that first win and kind of contribute towards that Philly under.
Not only that, so it's Packers and then the new look Falcons.
Yeah, who knows what? I mean, that's probably a pretty good bounce back spot for the Eagles, if I'm being honest, early on. But yeah, who knows? Maybe the Falcons are really good, right?
So I feel like we've heard that before.
Numerous
times over the past few years, but if there ever was a time where I feel like, maybe this is it. Obviously with Kirk Cousins under center, what they've done on offense now, it does feel like that the tides could be shifting here.
So I guess I like Dallas more than the Eagles just kind of by default, but you actually like Dallas this year, right?
So I'm really torn on Dallas at this point. 10.5 win total, just like the Eagles in this one here, plus 115 for the over, minus 135 for the under. plus 130 to win the division, so they're very neck and neck with the Eagles.
They're priced the same, essentially, we can say.
This is what bothers me. Key additions. The second name on the list is Ezekiel Elliott. If that's one of your key additions, then I feel like we've had a pretty unlofty offseason here.
Yeah.
And it really came down to they didn't give Dak that extension.
Look at the losses, though. O-line.
Yeah.
Like, that's how the Cowboys are built, that O-line. 2 losses there. I feel like that's similar to the Eagles.
Yep.
Who also, that O-line, like, huge issue down the stretch last year.
It was a huge issue, too. And, their pass rush is going to continue to be one of the best in the leagues. They got Parsons. They got Lawrence. Parsons, 51 sacks, as a unit here. So 51 sacks for the pass rush there. Parsons had 16, tied for 6th most in the league. This team is so thin at running back, and it feels like that's been like a crutch for them for years. But you have Zeke as your RB1. Coming into this season.
Yeah,
you don't have Tony Pollard anymore, and I know Pollard, really didn't take that next step that everyone was expecting him to, but you're running with Zeke, and then Rico is the backup. So are you just abandoning the run overall? Because aside from Lamb, do you feel strong about any of the other receivers that they have at this point? Because, I don't.
No, I mean, they'll make something.
They're fine.
They'll make something, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to see Dallas just being this aerial attack team. And again, they were a team last year that bet their team total over at home. Yeah. They would score points at home in Jerry World, indoors, and then they would go on the road and not look good.
Yeah.
I'll tie that into another week 1 spot. Browns Cowboys is essentially a pick'em.
Are you surprised by that?
Cleveland. A little, but it kind of tells me what I want to know. When we talked to Ross Tucker on the Sweat over Memorial Day weekend, I asked him, "Do you have any Week 1 spot?" And he said, "Give me Cleveland."
Yeah.
For 2 reasons. It's just strength on weakness in a lot of ways because Dallas put up a ton of points at home. Then they would go on the road, fail to be able to score, fail to put up points. And I get that this is in early September, so conditions are going to be about as good as they can be.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be pouring rain in Cleveland, but. You want to get Dallas outdoors. You want to get them away from home. And then Cleveland's defense, as we saw play out in the postseason, if you remember, they got smoked by the Texans on the road.
Yeah.
Their defense was giving up over 30 a game on the road. They were giving up 13 a game at home.
Yep.
It was very, as black and white as it can be. So I like Cleveland at home. And again, I by no means am a Deshaun Watson fan. I think he's fallen off a cliff for obvious reasons. But they're going to run the ball. They're going to play defense, and Dallas doesn't like playing outdoors against a good defense.
So I don't know if you do this, but if you see games, do you almost have a line in mind that you think it was going to be if you didn't know what it was? What would you expect this to be? Because if I looked at this and I didn't know the lines, 2.5 maybe?
Right, so Dallas, you couldn't be giving Cleveland a 3 at home.
No.
That would get gobbled up. But it did open some places. Cleveland was the dog, 1.5, 2. So the fact that it's priced where it is, a pick'em, we're going to call it that because -112, -108. And the fact that it moved that direction kind of tells me everything I need to know. If you're saying, ooh, don't you think Dallas should be laying the points here and the money's coming in on Cleveland, that kind of, validates the analysis that, okay, we need to see Dallas prove it outdoors against a good defense before giving them that respect. So I do like the Browns even more than the Packers probably in Week 1. The Browns are probably my favorite early Week 1 play.
All right, let's talk about some of the other teams in this division. Obviously, teams that were not expected to be overly competitive, but we've still got to talk about them here a little bit. Let's start with the Washington Commanders. Obviously, 8-1 to be the division winner. They have the better odds, when it comes to the other team in this league with the Giants. But win total, very interesting, I think here, 6.5. -120 for the over on this one. Even money for the under. Now, one thing that you have the advantage of doing, and it's in the DraftKings Sportsbook does a really great job of this, is we have lines up for the entire season.
Yep.
So we have a team that has a projected win total of 6.5. The juice is on the over, yet when you look at the lines for every week, the Commanders are only favored 3 times this season. Once against the Giants, once against the Panthers, and then, oddly enough, once against the Titans. I was kind of surprised about that. The Commanders are
They don't play the Patriots? I thought they did. I don't
believe so because they would be favored because the Patriots are never favorites.
Right. So all that I'll say about that is that all these teams with lower win totals, if you're betting the over on their win total, you're betting them to win some games as an underdog.
Sure.
Everybody wins some games as an underdog throughout the course of the season, but you also need them to hold strong in those favored games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are screwed if you bet the over on a
Right.
team like this. So, like the Patriots win total is 4.5, juiced -160 over. They're not favored this season. Now, that could change as the schedule goes on. By the time we get to games, the Patriots are going to be favored in a couple games here and there, just given injuries, you would think. But, yeah, if you're going on look ahead and you're going to line up how many times is this team a dog and what their win total is, it's never going to line up. You just got to kind of trust that they're going to win some games.
And to be fair,
go ahead.
To be fair, there are a couple games where it's like it's very close. It's like I think there's one game where they're like a -112 underdog, plus 112 underdog. So there are some games that could definitely change with injuries as the season goes on.
One prop I like, and we don't have it up on DK Sportsbook. It was up, it's down. I'm gonna have to wait for it to come back. Is the Jaden Daniels rushing prop? It was 500.5 rushing yards. He more than doubled this in 12 games last year during his Heisman season. He went for 700 something his first year at LSU. He went over the 500-yard rushing mark in his last season at Arizona State. I just think when things break down, you're going to see Daniels use his legs. And that's going to happen a lot. Rookie quarterback, a lot of indecisiveness. So if and when that one is back, even if it's up to like 525, 550, go with it.
Big difference. All Howell did was take the sacks. All right, following game one of the NBA Finals, Emerson Latzia caught up with the crew, the Oddball crew, to talk some NBA Finals. We'll get into that when we come back.
here in a beautiful Sunday morning edition of The Sweat, everybody, where we now have Amin Al-Hassan. We have Charlotte Wilder. Yeah, we're getting odd. We're getting weird hosts of Oddball on DK Network. Wow,
well
this is
standing ovation from the guy.
That's right. That was me clapping. So game one is already done here. What'd you guys think of how it all played out? Biggest surprise was what? Got to be Kristaps, right?
Yeah, no, he came out and he looked so comfortable, and it was instant. There was no let me get warmed up, let me get back into the flow of things. He was instantly amazing. That was pretty shocking. Kyrie playing as poorly as he did was pretty shocking as well. I didn't expect him. I thought maybe he wouldn't have a great game, but he struggled mightily. He looked uncomfortable out there.
Yeah, I don't know that the booze got to him, but I think the whole Dallas team was rattled. And I think you could tell because they've been playing unbelievable basketball.
That's what I'm saying. It seems so weird that he was so off.
This is what, on Oddball Mean's been saying this, the experience, it comes into play. Like, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, they're like deer in the headlights. And the Celtics, I think, have been preparing all season to be level-headed in the finals. I think that they have been practicing to be like, nope, it's just another game. We've got it. We've been here. They know what it feels like to lose, and they're like, we do not ever want to feel that again.
And when you think about it, you look through that roster, Tatum, Brown, Horford, Drew Holiday.
The depth is unbelievable.
Derek White, Hauser, Pritchard. These guys have all played in the finals. They've all been on a finals team. And when you look over at Dallas, it's Kyrie Irving and I think Derrick Jones Jr. maybe when he was in Miami. And then everybody else there, like, this is our first time at the rodeo. And that really was apparent in the first half of that game, that these guys looked a little shell-shocked. I think that's why we saw that big run in the third quarter where they cut it to 8, because it was like almost like you're getting whooped in a fight. And you're like, all of a sudden you wake up like, oh my God, hold on, let me stop.
You're like, wait, I remember how to throw a punch or two. Like, this is not like I've done this before. What's happening?
Which you said on Friday morning on Gojo and Golick too. At that moment was when all of a sudden Tatum came alive. I know he didn't light up like the stat sheet, and there's a lot of people who are being very critical of his play in game one, but I still think he did some things that didn't show up on the stat sheet, right?
Well, what was the stat they gave us today?
It was like the past 5 games where Tatum has shot under 40%.
Yeah, they're 5-0.
They're 5-0.
They're 5-0. So it's like, hey man, go out there and just play like dog crap and we'll win.
I mean, what's so interesting to me about this though is it takes a player like Jason Tatum to get you through the season, to get you to the point where you're in the playoffs, where you're in the finals. I also think that this team has so many different weapons that like. It's just it's like mind-blowing to think that if one of your stars doesn't have a great night, you can still win by 18.
Well, and I think also we're almost thinking about it in the wrong order, right? Like the order isn't he has bad games and then we win because he had a bad game. It's he's having a bad game so that other guys realize Tatum doesn't have it tonight. Jaylen Brown, I've got to step up, be more aggressive. Drew Holiday, I got to step up and be more aggressive. And pick up the slack, and that makes them better.
The fact that they are able to is crazy.
Yeah, like it almost feels like a super team, but instead of like a big 3, there's like a big 6 or like a big 7 or something like that.
It's 6. Let's not get crazy. It falls off after Chris.
Well, come on, don't disrespect Peyton Pritchard.
Oh man, that guy.
But you're right. Like with looking back on Thursday night, with the way Kristaps came off the bench, maybe Tatum was like, I don't know if I need that killer instinct tonight.
It's working, and by the way, that's. From a team perspective, I know from us and the media and fans, we want stars to be stars. But from a team perspective, I'm trying to win. I don't give a about what my numbers are.
Right.
And even Porzingis talked about this coming off the bench. He was asked, Charlotte, you were there in the press conference.
The press conference with Porzingis was fascinating to me because he was so open and he was clearly so happy to be here, so happy to be playing. He was like, someone said, what was the conversation like when Joe told you you'd be coming off the bench? He was like, it wasn't a conversation. Joe came up to me and said, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? He was like, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's what we did.
The second time in his career that he's done that, I think.
Yeah, and that, we were talking earlier, the growth that shows from Porzingis to be able to be like, I'll do whatever. And I think they have a group of guys who are all willing to say, I'll do whatever it takes.
What's the biggest question ahead of Game 2, Sunday night?
Well, I think the biggest question is how Kyrie Irving is going to come out. Like, he not only didn't have a good game, but the fans where I thought in the first half, it was like they booed, okay, but it wasn't crazy. I told Charlotte during the game, Caleb Martin got it worse for the Code Red game or whatever. But then the second half, as the lead is big, and people, I guess the third quarter beer started really blowing. The Kyrie sucks chance just started and kept going and going. And so the combination of him already not playing great and then the crowd really getting the better of him in the second half, I turned to Charlotte. I said, he's going to have like 16 in game 2.
I think game 2 is going to be much more aggressive maybe by the fans tonight because he's been playing the nice guy card all year, which has been impressive because you're able to focus more on him just being the best damn ball handler in the league. But then he had the quote that it was like, I thought
it'd be louder.
I was like, he's back.
And
I was like, Kyrie's back.
Yeah. I said, hell, man, like if you're not going to be able to beat the Celtics, at least since you left the Celtics, let's go. Like, go full heel again. I don't like nice Kyrie.
I mean, I do love it. I was like, that is the perfect. I think the best way to get under someone's skin is to like be nice about it and be like, oh yeah, no, I thought
overly nice.
Yeah, I thought,
that's where my wife and I get in disagreement. I'm just overly nice. Yes, ma'am. Sure thing, bucko.
Oh, I bet she loves that.
Oh no, she hates it. She said, don't call me buddy. I said, okay, my bad.
Okay, pal. Easy, pal.
I say, hey, friendo. Other news around the NBA. How do you guys feel about Dan Hurley potentially being the next coach of the Lakers here? Wow, what a twist in 24 hours. The Shams versus Woj, the Redick versus Dan Hurley wars out there.
Yeah.
But right now, Hurley seems to be the front runner.
Yeah, it's a little weird because I think, first of all, the Laker job, I know on the paper it's like, this is a great job, but it really is like a zero margin for error job, right? You go in and you have to be able to manage the situation more than lead it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're coaching LeBron James, and LeBron is a very particular guy.
Yep.
And in his career, he's played for Ty Lue and Eric Spoelstra, two of the greatest coaches that we have in the league. So it's like you're almost being measured up against an impossible standard. The other part of it is, look, coaching in the NBA, even LeBron aside, it's different.
Dude, yeah, your game has to translate.
And your communication style has to translate, right? Dan Hurley is an excellent college coach, but he's a college coach, right? Screaming at dudes, being fiery and worked up.
This is your responsibility. This is a team game. We're all in this together. You have to talk to millionaires. You're managing a group of millionaires. Grown men with families. That's a very different situation.
You go in there and start yelling at LeBron James, he's going to go, you're fired, man.
I mean, and even if it's not as overt as that, it's like, who the bleep are you to talk to me like that, right? And you know, the guys that have made the successful transition from college to NBA, and there aren't that many in the last 25 years. It's like Brad Stevens and Billy Donovan, right? They're the guys that walked in and understood, okay, what I did back there does not matter here. They don't care. Nobody cares about your college resume. Nobody cares about your resume in any other level other than here. So I have to come in and kind of swallow that and buy into this language, this NBA way of doing things. And the guys who haven't been successful, of which there are a lot of bodies along that route, they're all the guys like, all right, I won 6,000 games over here. All right, men, we're going to do this. I mean, think about it. Same thing in the NFL, really. Think about Urban Meyer. Like, he thought he could come in and talk any which way.
PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But, like, there's a level of like, no, dude, I'm not a 19-year-old worried about my scholarship.
I also think that Danny Hurley could very well turn it down because I think Danny Hurley, he's a very shrewd guy who looks at that Lakers roster, looks at LeBron in the last years of his career, understands the assignment, championship or bust. Can we do it with this roster? I'm not totally sure. Am I going to move my family all the way across country and have when I have a chance to three-peat at UConn? And he will get other chances to coach in the NBA probably if he keeps coaching the way he's coaching. I know it's the Lakers. And I was like, how do you turn it down? I could see Danny being like, not right now.
There's another part of this, guys, that I think sometimes people don't understand. Like, oh, it's the Lakers. Oh, it's this much money. It's like, Danny Hurley has the opportunity to be the coach at UConn until the day he dies or retires. Like, he's cemented. He's goated, my boy, as my friends like to say. So, like, when you have the opportunity to be Mike Krzyzewski, to be Roy Williams, to be, Mark Few up in Gonzaga, like, to turn that down to chase something that, A, does not historically have a great lifespan, right? NBA head coach in almost any city. But specifically B, that city, that franchise, they ran Phil Jackson out of town.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think they're going to do to you and Phil Jackson won 3 titles and then another 2 titles after that, right? You're Danny Hurley. If you come in and you guys start the season and you're like modestly well, but you're like the 6th seed and teetering on the edge of play, you're going to ruin your legacy and then end up being like on the outs because of what? Just for your ego?
Well, you two, I'm happy you were able to make some time for us here on The Sweat. Enjoy Game 2 tonight. Next episode of Oddball, what are we thinking here, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Every weekday but Monday. That's
All
how it
right,
works.
well, yeah, that's it. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Yeah, usually.
All right.
Just kidding, always.
We'll feel it out. All right, coming up next, we got more NHL bets plus some PGA sprinkled in there as well.
Only got about a half hour left here on the Sweat. Still a couple of sports that we haven't even gotten to, so we're going to bring in our number one Edmonton Oilers fan. Jeff Ulrich is joining us from Canada. And you know what, Jeff? I think there isn't a better question to pose to you than to give us a little bit of a Game 1 recap where the Panthers win 3-0 in that game. Bobrovsky with the shutout, 32 saves in that game. Became the first goalie, by the way, Jeff, to earn a shutout in Game 1 of the Cup final since Roberto Luongo did that 13 years ago. And here's a stat for you, Jeff. You might want to cover your ears for this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. Teams that win Game 1 have a 64-20 series record. Respond.
Whatever, man. Is there anything else you want to rub in my face?
No.
Did Connor McDavid get injured overnight? Anything else, Steve? Yeah, it wasn't the most ideal opener for the Oilers, obviously. But you know what? Weirdly enough, I actually feel okay. I mean, it would have been different if the Oilers had lost 3-0 and Florida had outshot them and Florida had outchanced them and they just looked like a bunch of jabronis out there. That just wasn't the case, though. The Oilers had far more high danger scoring chances. The Oilers just plain outshot them. And they, in a lot of ways, they just outplayed the Panthers. But the Oilers had a couple breakdowns on defense. Skinner got out goaltended. And the Panthers did what they did. They squeaked out a close game. But, I think that to this point in the playoffs, we haven't really seen a team dominate Florida like that on the chances. So there is something for Edmonton to build off of. The thesis for me, for the Oilers, has always been they have to split the first two games. Yep. Doesn't matter if it's Game 1 or Game 2. They show that they can play with the Panthers in Game 1. They just have to go and execute in Game 2. So that's where I'm standing right now with the series. Still am fairly confident. Will not be confident if they lose Game 2, though. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, let's talk about Game 2 here. That's going to be taking place tomorrow night, 8:10 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, Oilers at Panthers for this one here. Panthers minus 142 on the money line. Where are you leaning in this one here? But please take off your homer hat and just give us your straight analysis, not your Oilers analysis.
Yeah, no, and look, the straight analysis here is, I think that you do need to trust the numbers. I mean, you need to trust what Edmonton showed us, which is they can skate with Florida. I think it'll be a little bit closer game on the stat sheet in that the Oilers probably won't outshoot them by 20 shots again. I don't think that's going to happen, but I still think that what the Oilers have showed us is that they can skate with the Panthers 5-on-5, which is where the Panthers' big advantage is. I don't think that you can expect the Oilers' power play to go 0 for whatever this entire series. So give me the Oilers here as a shot at a plus 120. Like I said, we all expected that they needed to split the first two games. Well, this is it. They're going to split it. Now they have to win here. Playing for a tight series going on, I think it makes a lot of sense. You played the under here, but I'm more interested in just playing the Oilers to bounce back. Again, I'm going to trust what the stats showed us, that the Oilers bottom six can skate, that the Oilers bottom six can skate with the Panthers, and that Connor McDavid, by the way, had 5 or 6 shots on net. And when you give Connor McDavid that many shots, eventually he's going to break through. So Oilers plus 120. I'll go back to the McDavid anytime goal as well at plus 135. Really just going to stick with that prop because McDavid, even going back to the last series, has been shooting the puck more. That will eventually lead to Connor McDavid goals.
And if you do feel like the Oilers are going to prevail at this point, they are plus 110 to be the winner of the Stanley Cup final here. Is that something that you're looking towards, or do you think that when this is all said and done, Florida just has too much for the Edmonton to handle?
No, you could definitely look to the series line at plus 210. If you haven't bet it yet, I mean, look, this is generally when you should be betting it. It's just like buying the dip in a stock. It doesn't feel good to bet the team that's behind, but the price, the Oilers were around plus 110 pre-series to win the Cup. Now they're plus 210. Again, if they win this game, they've gained home ice advantage. It doesn't matter what happened in Game 1. It doesn't matter what those stats say because it's all going to flip if the Oilers win Game 2 and they get home ice advantage. So don't read too much into those pregame stats. It's not that those, they're not real or anything, but it will flip if the Oilers win Game 2. So you could certainly look to do that. I will say this. If you're like the Panthers and you're like this guy from Edmonton, just a complete idiot, I still think that Florida minus 1.5 games right now at minus 125. It's actually pretty appealing. Like that, I'm surprised that the Panthers at minus 1.5 games are still at -125. I would have thought they would have been a little bit shorter after winning game one. So it just goes to show you, I think, right now how much sort of respect in the market that the Oilers are getting. Everyone saw what happened in game one. They saw the Oilers skated with the Panthers and that they outshot them by a wide margin. And if that keeps happening, then eventually the Oilers are going to break through, win a couple games. And realistically, the Oilers have been behind in each of their last two series. The Oilers have won each of their last two series as well. Not a new spot for them. So, yeah, still fairly confident here. If you like the Oilers, like I said, this is the time to go shopping because the dip is here and you may not see it again.
And let's just wrap this up here with the Conn Smythe Trophy. Obviously, Bobrovsky with the shutout in that last game, plus 220 to win this now. Who are you leaning towards in this department?
I mean, Bobrovsky, this is the biggest mover. His odds basically got cut in half after game one shutout. And I think that with what the Oilers have shown us that, they're not going to be shut down 5-on-5, that they're going to get their shots on net. Like Bobrovsky at plus 220, probably still pretty good value. It's a real crapshoot. I mean, Barkov has played well all playoffs. Who knows? Carter Verhaeghe could score a hat trick in the next game. He scored in game one, but man, if the Panthers win, I think at this point, Bobrovsky feels like a pretty solid favorite right now, even though the odds are pretty close between him and Barkov. Yep. So a little bit of value there, but a lot of risk as well if you're going to take him over the straight Panthers series line.
All right, let's switch gears. Let's go over to the PGA. The Memorial Tournament obviously has been ongoing here. If you look at the odds for today, and we'll get to that in just a second here, but what do you like for today specifically? Not talking about the whole tournament, but what are your picks for today? Obviously, Scottie Scheffler is atop the board there by a wide margin here. What are you liking for today specifically?
Again, I mean, look, if you're betting anyone, if you're taking on Scheffler today, I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could look for some kind of round prop, go over on his score. I do think Colin Morikawa plus 1,000 is kind of intriguing. If you like Colin Morikawa pre-tournament, he was plus 1,400. Well, he's in second place going into the final round. He's still plus 1,000. I mean, yeah, it's 4 shots, but look, Scheffler had a triple bogey last week. This course is eating the players up. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Scottie Scheffler shoots 74. So I kind of do like Morikawa there, but I think, again, if you want a few more just sort of what I'd say round props or finishing props, I mean, just looking at the top 10 market, Tony Finau ended with a couple bogeys yesterday, but he's been positive in approach, positive around the green. He's plus 150 for a top 10. I don't have a problem with that either. I think Finau is probably a good target. He's one shot out of a full top 10 right now. Good place to be with a plus 150 there. I think from a round prop too, I'll just give you one here, Steve. Matthew Fitzpatrick plus 100 over Hideki Matsuyama. Been a bit of a struggle for Fitzpatrick with his irons, but certainly in a tough course like this, I'll take Fitzpatrick at plus money for one round. He's just so good around the green, so good with his putter that if those clubs stay hot for him for one round, I mean, he could absolutely beat anyone in this field. So like the plus money there you're getting on Fitzpatrick. Matsuyama's been kind of up and down all event.
You mentioned, the tough course and all, and then the winds too have been picking up as the day has been progressing too as well. We're expecting kind of more of that today here. Does that kind of go into your daily thinking here on who to play? Does anybody kind of take advantage of that, or is that really a downgrade for anybody?
I mean, I think that when you're looking at it, again, Morikawa and Scheffler, probably the two best ball strikers in the top 5 even. I mean, a guy like Ludwig Elberg hasn't necessarily been hitting the ball as well. So you could see him drop off a little bit. Xander Schauffele, kind of same deal. Don't love either of those guys necessarily just for today. Not saying they're not great players or anything. Same thing kind of goes with Adam Hadwin, although Hadwin's been striking it, really nicely this week, but trusting him for a fourth round could get a little bit dicey. I think that to your point though, those early starters, sure, if you're looking for a prop bet or a way to take advantage of that, the guys at even par, the guys at -1, they're all got plus money. Tommy Fleetwood is plus 200 to get a top 10. Again, they're going to be starting a little bit earlier. They're going to be finishing their round a little bit earlier as well. I think that makes sense just from an angle perspective, a handicapping perspective to potentially take a shot with those dudes who are kind of outside the top 10 right now.
All right, we got less than 90 seconds here. I mean, at this point, is there really any point in taking a winner's bet at this point? Are you looking more at a top 5, top 10, or are you looking to lay with somebody?
I mean, again, if you're looking for a top 5, top 10, just to finish off that thought, like look for the dudes who are what we would say like out of the money. Like if you're taking a top 5, I think a guy like Christian Bezuidenhout, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's plus 400 for a top 5. He's already shot 67 on this course. He's putting it great. It's not going to cost you a huge investment, and he's going to go off a little bit earlier. But from the winners market perspective, again, this course playing extremely tough. Just huge amounts of variance on a course like this. I think Colin Morikawa does make sense. I think plus 1,000 is pretty fair. His pre-event price was plus 1,400. I'm going to have a little sprinkle on Colin today. I don't expect a ton. It's Scotty Scheffler, but yeah, I do think Colin Morikawa makes a little bit of sense just when you're comparing his pre-event odds.
Jeff, thanks for joining us. Good luck to your Oilers here tomorrow. We'll catch up to you next weekend. Julie and I are going to wrap up this show when we come back on The Sweat on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Welcome back to the Sweat. Final block on the Sweat here. That was a very quick 2 hours. I think we hit a little bit of everything. Well, I mean, it was.
We did.
Probably for you. You know.
We did cover every real quick. 2 hours for Emerson. He just woke up.
I mean, he takes the day off because he's at an awards show. I mean, whatever that's supposed to mean. But let's talk a little bit more NBA. Before we get to that, let's take a quick listen here. Jaylen Brown talking about the crowd at TD Garden following Game 1.
I thought the crowd was good. I think we can be a little bit better. So I expect us to be even louder. Sunday, we're going to need our fans to be hype. You know, it's not just team versus team. It's crowd versus crowd. It's gas station versus gas station. Supermarket versus supermarket. It's the whole city versus the whole city. So we need everybody.
I think it was you that tweeted, and I could be wrong, but like that place was absolutely rocking in Game 1. Like that hasn't been heard in a long, long time.
It was good. It was a good building, just comparatively speaking to other playoff games in that building. Like lead up wise, like Game 7 Miami last year in the East Finals when they had a chance to be the first team to ever dig out of a 3-0 hole was one of the more electric pregame buildings that I've seen there. But that air came out of the building 45 seconds in. Jason Tatum rolls an ankle.
Yeah.
And like the air came out of the building. So that lived up to the hype. Game 1, you got all the noise. You come out, look okay in the first quarter, and then Porzingis comes in, and it just kind of the floodgates open. So, you know, Jaylen Brown there was kind of responding to Kyrie Irving, saying that he was expecting it to be louder. And again, I think Kyrie Irving regressed back to kind of the on-podium guy that he was a couple, 2, 3, 4 years ago versus how well he's cleaned things up since he got to Dallas. I think he kind of took a step back and is opening the door for, you know, some criticism or some more crowd interactions, which he did have in Game 1, multiple fans. Like, that's, if you're Kyrie Irving, the type of stuff you want tunnel vision and get rid of all that, and he kind of fell back into that, which I thought affected his game and helped the Celtics.
And if you kind of think about this too, like how long has this been in the making now for? If you date back to the trade with the Nets in, was it 2013 that took place in? I think it was 2000.
Nothing was in 2013, but what are you saying? When he was traded from the Nets to the Mavericks?
No. The Celtics making
Celtics.
that. Yeah.
Okay,
so the Celtics building up to this point.
Yeah. No, that would be 2019.
Okay, so this has been a few years in the making now, and at least Boston kind of feels like they're on the cusp of, you know, finally getting over that hump and getting to where they are now.
I mean, if you really think about it, the grudge that Celtics fans have against Kyrie, which is warranted because he came out at a season ticket member event, said that he intends to stay. You know, he missed the year that he wasn't playing in the playoffs where the Celtics had a Game 7 to go to the NBA Finals on their home court. LeBron and the Cavs ultimately won that. And Kyrie Irving was hurt he had knee surgery. He elected not to sit on the bench for Game 7. He had an elective nose surgery, essentially. Because he broke his nose. Right. He did have a broken nose and was wearing a mask from earlier in the season, but he was like filming Uncle Drew and like wanted to get this elective nasal surgery done in time. So he missed sitting on the bench for Game 7. Like there were a lot of little things there over the course of the years. But Celtics fans really shouldn't care because the Celtics are all set. They have a young core that should be in this position, has been in this position ever since Kyrie left, and should continue to be in this position for a while. So really, you shouldn't care. But, you know, it's kind of taken on this whole identity of its own, Boston versus Kyrie, and people just aren't going to let that go.
We talked
especially if you see it affect him like it did in Game 1.
Right.
Kyrie's been nails all postseason.
Yep.
He comes into Boston, he's chatting with multiple fans, he scores whatever it is, 12 points on like 30% shooting.
Yep.
It worked, so it's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse Game 2.
The kryptonite to his game has been Boston for sure.
11 losses in a row.
Yep, we've talked about this earlier in the show. You're still going to be on that. Chris Porzingis points in the first quarter at over 3.5. It's at minus 142.
Yeah.
You mentioned this opened at minus 112. I believe you said that it opened at. Still liking this one here though at 3.5.
It's up 30 cents and with good reason, but I think it's such a big discount off of what this should be that I'll play it at minus 142. And again, I'll play it if he comes off the bench. I might wait to play it because I think that my gut tells me he's going to come off the bench again.
Well, that was going to be my
right,
follow-up. What happens if it's announced he's starting?
Then it's going to move and you want to go quick.
Right.
But
so that's why, what do you think is the move here?
I think they're going to bring him off the bench again because I think they like matching him up with Lively, who comes off the bench. And pull Lively, their rim protector, their best rebounder, away from the rim. So I think he's going to come off the bench again. It also worked. So, now's maybe not when you change things. If they lost game 2, maybe they would consider starting Porzingis in game 3. But I would keep things the same. I think maybe if it's announced that he does come off the bench, the price drops a little bit again, and then you can get back in on it. And really, the analysis is it doesn't matter if he starts or sits because Horford's going to play roughly 5 first-quarter minutes. Porzingis is going to play roughly 7. Maybe it's even closer to 6 and 6. But they're splitting up the quarter one way or the other. Whoever starts, who doesn't. The other guy's going to come off the bench and play that last bulk. So he got a lot of good looks. He got all the switches he wants, shot over the top. He probably doesn't make every shot again or shoot whatever it was. 4 of 5 and make a pair of free throws. He'll level off a little. But we're talking about 3.5 here, just getting to 4 points in the first quarter. He's the best first quarter scorer on the Celtics when he plays this season, just ahead of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
There's one bet that I like doing for football. It's like these head-to-head matchups that they have that you can do, and they have these up for NBA, and they have a couple of intriguing ones. So they have more points here between Jaylen Brown and Kyrie. It's minus 115 on both sides, and then they also have Tatum, who's obviously, as you would expect, is a big favorite over Kyrie. But just going on that mentality that, Kyrie can't handle playing in the TD Garden, is this something that maybe that intrigue you a little bit? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit.
I expect a little bit of a bounce back from Kyrie.
Sure.
He's too talented to, be contained for the entire series, even in road games. And he made the shots he was making in game 1 were really hard, too. He was making difficult shots. He was just missing open threes. So I would bet that some open threes start to fall for somebody like Kyrie Irving. But again, this isn't an over-under on his points prop. It's head-to-head with Jaylen Brown. And I love this matchup for Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown is going to have a better series than Kyrie Irving. And generally speaking, would back Brown in a points head-to-head.
So just talking about moving over to MLB a little bit here, I gave out some bets that I like for today. Hopefully we have a better day than we did yesterday, but we don't have to worry about that. That was yesterday. That was in the past. We don't have to worry about that. But go ahead.
What do you think of that Yankees-Dodgers game?
From yesterday?
Today. Like the Dodgers having a 2-0 series lead. That doesn't matter in baseball, but winning the first 2 games of the series. Yankees in a Sunday night bounce-back spot at home. They've got their... Like, this kid's been like the Garrett Cole replacement that they needed,
almost even better.
So I like the bounce back for the Yankees, but...
So my biggest concern is that he'll really struggles with his command, and like that hasn't gotten him into trouble a lot this season. But now when you're going up against a team who is walking the most in the league against right-handed pitching, like this is where that can come into trouble because like you start putting these guys on base for the Dodgers, like there's just no let up in this offense in this lineup, and that's why this offense is just so dynamic and their run differential is just so vastly different. I think that's where he's gonna really kind of run into problems here. So. I think that the Dodgers, it's not often you get the Dodgers at minus 125 straight up on the money line here. But, the matchup on paper definitely lives up to that type of matchup that you'd expect here. But to me, it's like if he really can't get that command going because he's walking over 4 batters per 9 inning and you start getting guys on base for the Dodgers, that's where you're going to run into trouble here. So I would side with the Dodgers in this one. And I will say I did not expect a clean sweep for the Dodgers against the Yankees. Like the Yankees have been playing as one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. This was a team that I was very down on coming into the year because sure, they added Juan Soto, which is a massive add, but the rest of the team is just kind of as is. And this is a team that really kind of dragged ass for the majority of 2023. But they have been above and beyond any expectations I think that anybody would have had for this point. But I think they're going to end up falling to the sweep here against the Dodgers tonight.
All right. Well, like you said, nobody expected the Dodgers to sweep the Yankees, so they aren't. Yankees are going to win tonight.
Well, I don't want the Yankees to win tonight. But one other bet that I do like here, I kind of mentioned it, Guardians on the money line here going up against Trevor Rogers. Really short line here against someone who's really been struggling. Carlos Carrasco hasn't been great either, but Trevor Rogers, just lefties against the Guardians has been a problem for them all year long.
I'm going to play this one.
Yeah, I really like the Guardians here on that short line against the Miami Marlins, who have just been we're waiting for the fire sale at this point. We're waiting for those trades to start firing off here. But Guardians on the money line, and I do like that under between Mariners and Royals, which is at 7.5. That is going to do it for this weekend's edition of The Sweat. We should have Emerson back unless he's got like another show to go to. But it'll be all three of us here next week, Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, VSiN, DraftKings Network. We'll see you next week.